Now, welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name is Lucas, aka 3 Point Spanish King, and got our good friend James Butler. We did say we are going to get him back. Probably not this soon. We did say we are going to get him back during the West Indies series, but unfortunately, series of events has happened. England has sacked Graham Thorpe and Chris Silverwood from the coaching role. James, your reaction from this? Well deserved, or you happy, or you angry, or yeah?
I thought I'd slept. I thought I'd slept in and missed a few days, and thought it was the West Indies trip. I think it's inevitable, really, that there were going to be some heads rolling, regardless of whether you think it's right or wrong. Both countries, I think, put the Ashes above everything else, and England got smashed, didn't they? So it was no surprise, really. There was going to be some kind of fallout from it. The fact that Ashley Giles has gone, I thought was a right thing to do. I thought Ashley had gone into that role and pretty much absolved himself of a lot of responsibility by giving all of that responsibility to Chris Silverwood, and was kind of floating around, kind of blamed the fact that there was the pandemic. Everybody's had to confront that. England have obviously played a huge amount of matches in the last 18 months, but I don't think you can use that as a complete excuse. And England was so far off the boil. And when he said that everybody knows that there's problems with the English domestic structure, it made my immediate reaction to that was, well, why aren't you doing something about it then? You've been in a position for some time now. It's not like it's a new thing. It's not like you didn't know that and it's only just dawned upon you. So it surprised me a little bit. So I'm not particularly fussed about Ashley Giles going, and having looked at his domestic record as well, I don't think he was the right man. He's a good man. I mean, I've met him a few times, and he's a good bloke. But I don't think he really fitted that role. Andrew Strauss looks like he's coming back into that. He's there as an interim filler at the moment. There's some talk that he might even be the chairman of the ECB. But I think he's got the potential to be the director again. It was the role that he lost when his wife sadly died, and he obviously took some time out, quite understandably. And maybe it's his chance to come back and reclaim that. Kind of the one thing I've heard a lot of people say about Strauss is that he did take England down the route of going white ball rather than red ball, because he took it over, 2015 World Cup, terrible performance, put a lot of eggs into the white ball basket, and obviously won the World Cup off the back of that. And a lot of that was because of Andrew Strauss, but I think the red ball suffered as a result of that.
Which is strange, because he was a red ball cricketer. He was a red ball specialist, which is very strange.
He played white ball as well. He captained England into one of the World Cups. But I think, I've heard people say, well, obviously his preference is for white ball rather than red ball. But I don't think that's the case. It was just a strategic decision to take. I think now is that he could be tested to say, well, put some eggs back in the red ball basket and let's strengthen that. So I've got a lot of time for Andrew Strauss. I think he's a good bloke and knows the game. He's an intelligent fella. And I think he could lead English cricket forwards if given the right ammunition. So, yeah, no problem with that at all. But obviously today, or last night in the UK, we saw the fact that we'd lost a few more. Graham Thorpe has lost his batting coaching role. Don't think there was any surprise there. Obviously off the back of the end of the Ashes as well, and the taking the film and that being leaked to the press. So I don't think Graham Thorpe can take a huge amount of credit from the Ashes either. The batting was the fault, and he was the batting coach. So he's obviously in the crosshairs and has paid the price for that. He was one of my favourite players, Graham Thorpe, when I was younger and he was in the England team. I used to love watching him play cricket. I don't think he's particularly added a huge amount to England's batting. And kind of a strange thing, really. I hear a lot of ex-pros and coaches talk about you're there as an international coach just to steer people in the right direction, to be an ear to kind of bend and throw the balls, really. But there's got to be an element of you're a bit out of sync, or your left foot's not moving right, or let's have a look at the footage of this, and pointing people in the right direction if they're struggling with form. And that doesn't seem to have been the case with England. So, no surprise that Graham Thorpe's gone. Chris Silverwood, obviously, I think it's probably the right decision. I do probably have the most sympathy with Chris Silverwood of any of the people that have lost their jobs. I think he was given, I did a tweet saying he was given a gun with no bullets in it, and was basically doing three people's jobs. Chris Silverwood had given him the chief selectors role. they'd given him the white ball coaching and the red ball coaching. And as we've said many times, I think that's almost two different sports these days. And you've got to be across all of that and to give all of that your 100% and to do all of that well. It's a huge task. It's an impossible job for one person. And how somebody that's in that role can do the red ball and the white ball and go around and see some of the up and coming players to see if they're any good in terms of selection further down the line. I don't think that's something that one person can do. So I think in the future, I wish him well because he's a good bloke, Chris Silverwood, and had success with Essex. And a lot of people saying, well, he just wasn't up to it, and he obviously doesn't know what he's doing. I think that's a bit harsh. You don't take a county to the county championship, especially a county of Essex's size, without knowing a little bit about which end the bat stands. So I think that that's a bit harsh, and hopefully he has a role in the future in English cricket. And he had the pandemic to deal with as well, and coaching in a bio bubble and whatever for the last 18 months. So I think he got dealt a pretty poor hand, Chris Silverwood. Did his best. Maybe he wasn't up to it. Maybe in another world with a slightly better win behind him, he might have done a better gig, had a better gig. But I don't think he can have too many complaints. But I do feel the most sorry for Chris Silverwood of any of the three that departed. Was
this always going to happen before Ashes? Like no matter what the result was going to be, he was going to get sacked.
Oh no, not at all. No. I think if he'd won.
So this is actually based off this series.
Yeah, I mean it's based a little bit off the back of previous performances. Obviously, last summer England were down against the Indians. Obviously, there's still a deciding Test match to play.
That
in the coming summer, they lost to New Zealand, beat Sri Lanka, but a fairly poor Sri Lanka in their own backyard. And obviously lost to India away. And there's been a kind of trend, I think, with English cricket that players have come into that England Test team, notably the Test team rather than the one-day team, and haven't really progressed. They've come in. Ollie Pope's a great example of somebody that's just burnt up county cricket, has got, looks a terrific player, but just hasn't kind of progressed and stepped forward as a Test player. And there's a reason for that, whether that's Ollie Pope, whether that's the coaching, whether that's Chris Silverwood, only they know really. But I think there aren't any players really that have come into the Test team and have got better for it. So there's an issue around in terms of the culture in that side and what have you. And Chris Silverwood, I guess, carries the can for that. But I think if England had won 5-0 in Australia, or it was Joe Root had been lifting the urn at the end of it, or even if it had been 2-2 and it had been close, lost 2-1 and it had been close, I think Chris Silverwood would have probably clung on. But because it was such one-way traffic, and there was nothing from that series for England to cling on to. We're seeing the women at the moment playing and losing the women's Ashes, but at least they're giving it something. And they fought in the Test match, and they drew the Test match with fight and could have possibly even won that Test match. So they're showing something a little bit, and they're showing a little bit of initiative and a little bit of bite and fight. Whereas England the men didn't really do that. So something's wrong with that. There needs to be a bit of a shake-up, and they've obviously shaken up quite a bit.
Well, I think if Australia lost 5-0, I don't think I'd be sitting here doing this with you. So I think I'd be MIA for a very long time. Very angry. But did it really help Chris Silverwood's cause making ridiculous press conferences, when he got absolutely battered when they were down 3-0 and he said, there's still positives to take out of it? Was that...
It doesn't help.
Was that... Yeah, was that for real? That he obviously said it, but was he trying to say something different, or was he trying literally just get rid of me?
I'm sure he wasn't going to get rid of me. But I think.
But what was the idea behind that interview?
I think it's very difficult. I mean, I've worked in the media on a county basis, and. There was a season I had at Yorkshire where Anthony McGrath was captain, and nothing was going right for Yorkshire. They couldn't win a game, and the streak without a county championship win had gone from sort of 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And there's only so many ways as a member of the media you can ask a question, and there's only so many ways as a member as somebody being interviewed that you can answer it. And you've got to try and, I guess, be a little bit positive. You can't just stand there crying and sulking and looking fed up. But I guess there's times and a place, and I think he got that wrong. I don't think that's necessarily something to kind of castigate him on too much long term. But it wasn't the best choice of words. And to try and off the back of an absolute smashing, to try and say the positives to take is, but it's a cliche, isn't it? It's, they do that many interviews. I often thought during that Ashes series that I felt for Joe Root ahead of each test match.
So did I. Yeah,
you get a microphone placed in front of you. Everybody wants to do an interview about what your hopes and fears for the next test match. And there's only so many ways you can say, well, we're going to be up for this. You're 2-0 down, you've just been smashed twice, and you're trying to show that you've got some fight. And then you get out on the pitch and it all goes horribly wrong again. And when you're losing, you can't win, can you? In terms of how you come across in the media, there's always going to be somebody criticising what you do. But I don't think Silverwood got the tone right in terms of how he spoke to the press. But as I say, I don't think that's something you can really hang him for.
Well, no, it's not. He's not the only coach to say something silly like that. Justin Langer with his Indian quote, 10 billion people, that was just absolutely nonsense at the time as well. Yeah. So Ashley Giles is gone. Graham Thorpe's gone. Chris Silverwood's gone. However, Joe Root has still kept his job as captain and will be captain in the future. Yeah.
And I think that's the right call. I think... There's nobody. I mean, I feel a lot of people.
Did he actually want to step down, or did he say I want to leave, or is it? No, or is it?
He wanted
because
to
there was
stay.
no. Okay.
He wanted to stay.
So he actually wants to be captain.
Yeah, he made some noises off the back of the Ashes. I mean, I've heard a few people say he needed to take a little bit of time out, maybe think about it. But he was making noises at the end of the Ashes series to say he thinks he wanted to put it right and to take the team forward. I think there's been a lot of people, including myself, saying there was nobody else. But ultimately, Lucas, that's not a reason to keep somebody.
No.
Just because there's nobody else, it's not, But I do think.
Well, I even said that he might be held as ransom, because there is no one else, and they might force his hand somehow. But at least that's not the case.
But I think there's. We've had this conversation before on here, but I think it's easy to look a good captain with a very good side. If you go into the best Indian sides or the best Australian sides, or indeed the best English sides. As a fairly moderate captain, you can be made to look a very, very fine captain because you've got the players to back you up and get you out of a mess. If you're an average captain, which I think Rooty is, I don't think he's a terrific tactician. I think he's got all of the players behind him. They all love him. They would run through a brick wall for him, but I just don't think he's got the talent in that side at the moment to really drum home advantages. He gets 100 with the bat and looks around to think, well, who else is going to back me up here? And when he fails with the bat, very few people stand up to make the runs in his stead. So, I think he takes a lot of credit from going through last season, scoring as many runs as he did last year. And I think if England can get things a little bit better on the pitch in terms of how they play, then maybe he can start to look like a better captain. Because if all of a sudden he's scoring 350, 400, 450 in the first innings rather than 147, then you've got a little bit more scope for a few mistakes, and you've got a little bit more scope to attack, and you can lead the game as a captain. Whereas, through that Ashes series, he never got the opportunity to actually drive the game because he'd never got enough runs on the board. So he's always going to look like a defensive captain trying to catch up in the game, because that's what he was. He was a captain that was always behind the 8 ball, wasn't he?
Yeah. Just an off-topic question: Have England, mainly their test team, have they gone back home to England, or have they gone to the Caribbean and staying there for
the white ball team that they picked a separate squad?
We know that. The
T20s out there in the West Indies, and then the test team goes out. It's the first test is right at the start of March, isn't it? So we'll probably find out who's going to be in that test team soon. And then they'll go out they'll have the terrible task of going out to the Caribbean and sitting in the sun for a bit.
Oh, fantastic! Dreadful conditions in the Caribbean. Wouldn't want to be anywhere else. So sorry for going off topic there. Okay, so Ashley Giles is gone. Who's the right man to replace him? As you said, Andrew Strauss. I
think the first thing to think about is the structure of the coaching. I think the biggest mistake Ashley Giles made was to split. Was to have to make Chris Silverwood everything. both formats or all formats and selector. England have tried that twice in their history. They had Ray Illingworth did that back in the early 90s, and Chris Silverwood now. Neither time has it been a success. It's just too much for one man to do. And I think they need to go back to having split coaches, have a test match coach and have a white ball coach. Obviously, there's got to be crossover there. They've got to work together and they've got to cultivate a little bit of harmony between the two sides, because there will be crossover with players. But I think if you do that and then have a director of cricket above them, then that helps. And you probably need to undo everything that Ashley Giles tinkered with and have a selector, whether that's the director of cricket playing his part in that role, or whether he's just removed and overseeing everything, and you bring in somebody that is chairman of selectors with a little selectorial team. Because I think one of the things with English cricket domestically is that there is obviously the potential to watch people on video and to, every game is streamed and everything like that. So you do get a little bit of a guide, I think, as a selector on how.
Yeah, it's on YouTube and all that kind of. I've actually watched the county last year because it's been broadcast on YouTube.
But I think,
I think it's been fantastic.
I think one of the things that the selectors that I've dealt with in the past and I've seen in action in the past, have gone to the grounds. And there's nothing that beats going to see somebody playing live. You get the feel for the game a little bit more. And you can also talk to the player. You can go along and sort of just take somebody aside for 10 minutes and chat to them about, you're on my radar. This is what I'm looking for you to do. And
put some pressure back onto the players.
Yeah, well, and talk to them and find out a little bit about what makes them tick and what they're thinking and how they're approaching their game, and learn a little bit more than you can just off a one-dimensional video. So I think there's definite scope to have somebody doing that. So I'd like to see that happen. So going back to kind of personnel, really. So England would be looking for probably a chairman of selectors. That could be I don't know who that would be. That could be anybody that's just got a good eye on a player. It doesn't necessarily have to be a name particularly, I don't think. I mean, it tends to be that a lot of these guys that get these jobs are named ex-pros, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. It just needs to be somebody that has got a little bit of common sense, knows the game, and can understand if a player's playing well and looks good. I think in terms of the coaching, that if you're splitting them across red ball and white ball, Gary Kirsten's made it quite clear that he would be to a lot of people's displeasure at the time, because Chris Silverwood was in a job at the time, and I could see what they were saying. But I also like the fact that Gary Kirsten nailed his colours to the mast and said, "I want this." So I'd like to see him come in as the red ball coach. I've seen other names mentioned, but I think
will England? Yeah, go on.
Sorry, what Gary Kirsten offers is, as a player, I mean, I think often coaches come in the guys that they were as a player to some degree. Gary Kirsten was a nuggety opener who batted long and made the most of his talents. And I think if he could sort of transmit that kind of ethos to the batting, that's what England need, isn't it? That's what England need to drum into that top order, to value your wicket and not give it away, and to battle and to fight and to battle on. Gary Kirsten can probably do that, I think, and he's obviously had success with India in the past, and he's been in charge of other big teams. So I think he's got a lot on his CV that would benefit English cricket. White ball wise, there's a few in the mix for that. I think Paul Collingwood would be on the radar there.
Yes, yep.
You've got
and Ian Bell.
There's a number, isn't there? Of that kind of era, there's a number of players that have had success in the past. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see who they plump for. I saw Kevin Peterson. I don't know if he'd had any people suggesting he should be in charge, but on Twitter,
I've seen a few. Yeah,
on Twitter, he basically said, "I'm not taking that job unless they franchise county cricket." Well, hopefully he won't be taking the job, because hopefully they don't do that.
Well, I think if Andrew Strauss is chairman of selectors, I don't think you'll see Kevin Peterson with the role anytime soon anyway. So I think that's the least of his problems. Are England with their red ball, are they? Because I'd like to think that the red ball should be your number one emphasis in cricket. I know some nations like West Indies, India, prefer white ball. But are England happy to go to a coach that's not English, or they don't care?
I think
as long as they can do.
England have had most success with overseas coaches, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, you look back at who's been successful with England, then the majority of the ones who are actually given England a little bit of a lift have been, Trevor Bayliss, the Aussie. You've had Andy Flower came in and took them to world number one.
Zimbabwe, South African,
Zimbabwe. So, I don't think England have got any prejudice in terms of, I don't mean that in a nasty way, but in terms of,
of course,
keeping it to English only, because you look at who's going to do your country the best job. And sometimes I think one of the, going back to Ashley Giles, I think one of the mistakes him and Chris Silverwood made was they surrounded themselves by people they got on with. If you looked at the coaching staff behind the scenes there, they were all players that they played with or worked with in the past. There was a lot of Warwickshire players in there that Ashley Giles knew, some of which are good coaches, don't get me wrong. But I think there's an element of making it quite cosy where everybody gets along and it's all a little bit of a club. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having some of those people, because you need to have people you trust and respect and admire. And if you played with somebody, then you see the good in them. But it doesn't do any harm, does it, to throw in 2 or 3 people that are from a different backdrop and have seen different things and maybe go about things a different way, because you get an exchange of views, then you get differences of opinion. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that you're falling out if people say, well, we should do it like this, and somebody else says we should do it like that, because you draw on people's experiences and what they've achieved in the game and how they've seen things. And I think looking overseas, I mean, as I just said, I think Gary Kirsten would be a good option for England in Test cricket. Obviously, he's overseas, so I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. Yeah.
Reason I brought that up, there are some nations that prefer coaches from their own country. Australia is one of them. They had John Buchanan for a very long time under the golden generation. They went with Mickey Arthur, that ended up in absolute disaster. Then went back to Bull Fleming, that ended in absolute disaster. Then they've gone to Justin Langer. So there are some coaches that are, some nations that do want to get coaches from their own nation.
The Lehman thing wasn't really. It ended in disaster because of sandpaper game, not because he was a bad coach necessarily, did it? But I think England will just look at who is the best person for the job, and that'll be a global application process rather than just an application process.
Yeah, well, I Darren Lehman, bought some after the Mickey Arthur absolute debacle. Darren Lehman did bring some stability to that dressing room.
And it's strange, Lucas, as well, because I think Mickey Arthur's a good coach. That didn't work.
Yeah.
That didn't work
in
Australia.
Because he was,
because you're the jigsaw piece, and it's whether you fit into that hole, isn't it?
Yeah. And I remember when he was coach, because he's from South Africa, he got absolutely smashed from pillar to post in the newspapers. Headlines went, South African can't coach Australian teams, blah, 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 all that. So, like I said, there are some nations that don't really want to go overseas. But like you just said, you find the best man for the job. And we're going to go into some candidates. We're not going to name every single candidate we can come across to, but we'll name some likely candidates. And you give me a satisfied rating out of 10, James, how much badly you want them to be coached. Let's go with...
This is our interview process, is it? This is our shortlist.
Yeah, okay. This is our shortlist, okay. Some are unrealistic, some plausible. Ricky Ponting.
I'd love it to be Ricky Ponting. If everything else was equal and everybody was available and everybody was keen to come, I think Ricky Ponting would be my man.
He's been linked for the Australian job after Justin Langer. I think he's more into TV than coaching per se.
Well, you say that. I mean, he's obviously got his franchise gigs, isn't he, in the IPL and what have you? But I don't think Ricky Ponting would come to England. I don't think it would work.
Okay.
Really on that basis.
As you mentioned, Gary Kirsten.
Gary Kirsten, I think, of the people that are likely to want it, and we know he wants it, is possibly the best candidate. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Mike Hussey.
Ish. I mean, I could see he's obviously vastly experienced. I know he's a good guy. Never really thought about him, to be honest. I probably
do you see him more as a batting coach than actually a head coach?
Possibly, but I mean, he's obviously got vast experience. And I think as well. One of the things I think sometimes people overlook is the how the journey that a player has taken through their own game. And it's not always it's not always the best players that make the best coaches. Because I think sometimes when you've experienced setbacks in your own career, maybe not quite made it, and have been frustrated because of various things, you can see you probably relate to a player a little bit more when they're having their own struggles and are able to. Because I think coaching's twofold. You're looking at the technique and the on-pitch stuff, but you're also dealing with a human being and what's inside their head and what makes them tick. And I think a good coach certainly does the second part of that just as much as the first part of that. Mike Hussey's journey through the game, obviously a very, very talented player, played in Australia and played in England in county cricket, made a lot of runs.
Yeah.
Had to wait for his time to get into that Australian side. So he knows what it's like to have to do the hard yards before he gets his opportunity. So I can see the benefit from that respect. But I think Gary Kirsten's CV in terms of coaching would be better than Hussey's.
Yep. Okay. Across the ditch from Australia, Stephen Fleming.
I like Stephen Fleming a lot. Very, very down to earth, very intelligent, very well versed in all formats, isn't he? Really. I mean, I guess we're talking about the test team here, aren't we?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. As you mentioned, the split. Yeah.
I mean, Stephen Fleming would be a very good, I think, appointment. I'd put him right up there with Kirsten if he was willing to come, because I mean, obviously, all of these guys have other irons in the fire, don't they? I mean, Stephen Fleming heavily involved with CSK. So, that takes its time. That takes them away from it. And we talk about players playing the IPL and not being available for England. But if your coach is otherwise engaged, then that's possibly even more of a problem, isn't it?
Absolutely. This one a little bit unrealistic, but Michael Vaughan certainly has opinion on this guy. Justin Langer, if he leaves Cricket Australia.
No. I thought it was, I mean, I mentioned earlier about talking about Gary Kirsten when Chris Silverwood was still in the job. Well, it seems very strange to mention Justin Langer when he's currently the Australian coach. I mean, you probably know more about me about his likelihood of being able to carry on with Australia. But on the face of it, on the surface, he can't be more successful than he's been in recent times, can he, as a coach? He's won the T20 World Cup, won the T20 World Cup, and won the Ashes.
Back to Australia, one that's very familiar with the English circuit. For my sake, I hope not, because he needs to stay as Redbacks coach. Jason Gillespie.
Loved Izzy. I think he'd be brilliant. He simplifies things. He gives players a little bit of a not too much of a leash, but he kind of treats them as adults rather than kids, which I think a lot of players respond to. And as I say, he kind of just makes it simple and just makes people. He's very good, Jason, at allowing people to enjoy their cricket. Kind of takes away I think what he does is he assumes that everybody understands the how can I phrase this? That the importance of the game and treats it with respect, but then allows them to enjoy it off the back of that. And I think, ultimately, regardless of whether it's a test match or what, you're playing a sport, aren't you? You should be enjoying yourself. And Dizzy's very good at uncomplicating things.
Very good.
I don't think Dizzy would come back to England at the moment. I think he's quite happy doing what he's doing in Australia. But if he was available, I'd definitely put him on my shortlist. Yeah.
Oh, well, with all due respect to the Redbacks, I wouldn't blame him if he left them. Sorry, a lot, to be honest.
But that's his home, isn't it? Ultimately.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Adelaide. Yeah.
He's got a family. He's obviously been in county cricket with England and Sussex, and his career has taken him around the world playing for Australia. There comes a time probably where he quite likes to sit in his own backyard and put his feet up and enjoy some time with his kids and his wife. And whether he thinks there's a challenge left in international cricket, from Dizzy's point of view, the one thing he's not done is actually coached into an international side. But the kind of the drawback of coaching any international side, and this is why I think it would have to be a split coaching thing to allow a coach a little bit of time at home. Because Trevor Bayliss, when he was England manager, he said that he only had 6 days in his own bed the entire year. I don't think Dizzy would take it under that basis. You've got to give people a bit of time at home and a bit of time off. So if things were made to be suitable for him.
Yeah.
I could see him wanting the challenge. It would
Yeah.
have to be right for him, though, I think.
Yep. As we said, we're not going to name every single candidate, but we'll give two more. Probably less likely, Otis Gibson.
Well, he's only just taken the Yorkshire job. So,
but has major experience for South Africa. Bet us absolutely demolished us when he was the coach. Won that series in Australia, first South African coach, or as a coach to win in Australia.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wearing two hats with this because I'm a Yorkshire fan.
Yeah.
And he's only just signed. I don't think he's even landed in Yorkshire yet. I think he starts in sometime in the next few weeks. There is no way Yorkshire will let him go. He's only just signed the paper. He's not even started, so there's no way he's going to go.
And an Englishman for the last one. As we're not going to name everybody, but Alex Stewart.
Alex Stewart's good. Very passionate, very knowledgeable, English through and through. I mean, that sounds strange. I mean, every Englishman's English through and through, but he kind of epitomizes kind of how you'd want a player to behave. He's very professional, very, very structured and organised, and knows exactly what it takes to get the best out of yourself as a player. Obviously, I've heard mention of him, and I've heard mention of Richard Dawson taking charge in West Indies, obviously, because there needs to probably be an interim coach in West Indies until they actually make a proper appointment ahead of the summer. And I'm sure
who would you you just mentioned interim job. Who would you go with for that interim job? Would you say to him, all right, let's just give you take over, then we'll find a proper coach, or would you try to find a proper coach for that series and then lead him forward?
I would find the proper coach in whatever time it took. And if that was going to mean it was going to go beyond the West Indies trip or into the West Indies trip, then I would have an interim coach to keep things going.
So someone like an Alex Stewart or someone like a Paul Collingwood that could take him over there as an interim coach.
I mean,
and then
you got a few in the mix there, haven't you? You've got people that have been involved with England over the last few trips. Yeah, the Trescothick's Trescothick's another one that's in the mix in terms of the white ball job, certainly. Vastly experienced in Test cricket as well. But there's another, Jonathan Trott's been involved, Pop Welch, who didn't have an international career as such, but he's a very well respected bowling coach. There's a number of been involved in the setup over the last couple of years who I'm sure would jump at the chance just to even have the experience of going to the Caribbean and being in charge of an England team, even if they knew it wasn't going to be a long-term thing. It's not bad for your CV to say you've done it.
Yeah, let's mention Jonathan Trott, as you mentioned. Let's say they say, all right, we want you to take charge of the West Indies. Would you be for or against, lead the West Indies team, see what happens, and if you do well, you get the coaching gig? So it's like a bit of an audition. Would you like that, or are you against that? Or
I mean, if it's an audition from somebody that actually we've talked about, if Jason Gillespie suddenly phones up and says, "I'm happy to come to the West Indies as a bit of a trial to see how I like it," then fair enough. But the way I look at the Test job at the moment is that Jonathan Trott, some of these guys haven't got enough coaching experience. I think they've got plenty of coaching experience. They know the setup, but whether they'd be my choice to be the main man would be a different conversation. And I wouldn't just, an audition in the West Indies off the back of 3 Test matches probably doesn't tell you a huge amount, does it?
Yeah. But is that a thing that actually could happen? We're using Jonathan Trott as an example. Trott, let's see what you do. They win 3-0. You got the job. Would that be satisfying in a way, or is that kind of a rush to judgment thing?
You've got to get the right person for the job long term.
Yeah. So that would be. So you're saying that would be a big mistake if they did that?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think if you make somebody the interim coach for the West Indies, they take that job with no promises whatsoever in terms of what their future is. No promises of even being in the coaching setup longer term. Because whoever gets the head coach job wants to put his own people in there. That's fine. But I think if they want to apply for the head coach job off the back of being in the West Indies, you take that into the mix, but you don't give them any promises for it.
So that's the coaching job covered. Batting coach. Would you be happy with, like I said, a Paul Collingwood?
The white ball gig is there as well. I think you've got, and we mentioned a number of potential candidates. You've got your Paul Collingwood. You've got Marcus Ruskovics, a potential.
Ian Bell.
There's a number who are in the mix for that.
So you could put, let's say, Ian Bell as England's batting coach, and he could take over the white ball cricket. Would that be ideal?
I think you have two separate teams. You've got two.
Yep.
Yeah, you've got a red ball coach. You have got a white ball coach. They appoint their coaching staff, and never the twain shall meet almost, because what I want to see built up there is a system where when the test team's not playing, those guys get a bit of time away and are able to recharge the batteries. Yeah, meet up and think about the game and talk about it, but they're not always on duty 365 days of the year, because that's burning people out. It's killing people off. It's not healthy. So the red ball and the white ball stuff is two separate things. But I get, the head coaches and the batting coaches probably talk to each other because they're going to have the same people they're working with. But I think they need to be separate entities.
Would Mahela Jadwana be a perfect example of a red ball batting coach that you'd like? Because again, he's another one that has limited coaching experience, but does have if
Mahela Jadwana was available for England, they'd have to. It's the same as kind of conversations with Ricky Ponting, and they need to get a big checkbook out. Mahela's not going to take it for nothing.
No. Would they do that though? Would they pay?
If it was the right person,
meta money for getting these stars?
There's money in English cricket, so if it's the right person, I'm sure they would make it lucrative for somebody. But I think with somebody like Mahela, I mean, I've met Mahela. He's in charge of the Mumbai Indians. He's a terrific bloke and very, very studious, very good. I mean, he'd be my white ball coach if everybody was available and could do it. Mahela would be the white ball coach for England because he's terrific. But I guess one of the things with that as well is obviously with the IPL. The IPL is a big chunk of the season now, and whether you like it or not, it's there and it's there to stay.
I don't like it.
I know you don't, but it's there to stay.
No. Well, I wish the IPL would leave my damn Redbacks players alone and stop putting them in auctions. That would be damn nice. But
it's not going to, Lucas. So it's pointless. It's pointless crying about it.
I know. Well, let me give you an example. Jake Retherald has no business playing IPL cricket. He should be playing with the Redbacks, and they throw money at him and he takes it.
But my point is that
of course, I get emotional with my Redbacks, James.
It would allow somebody like Mahela Jadwana to keep his gig with the Mumbai Indians, because England aren't playing white ball cricket during the IPL really.
No,
because no teams are. So you could do your gig in the IPL. Your Ricky Ponting could do his gig in the IPL and then link up with England after it, if that was palatable and could be worked out time wise.
So who's the interim chairman of the board now? The Ashley Giles stepped down. Is there nobody? Surely there must be somebody.
ECB have got very few people behind desk at the moment. The chairman of the ECB is not there. Tom Harrison's kept his job for now. It appears as the chief executive. But then Ashley Giles, as the director of cricket, has left his desk vacant, and Chris Silverwood has left his desk vacant as the coach. There's no selector. There's the one advantage for somebody like Andrew Strauss, if he is to take the job as director of cricket. Longer term, I think he's only committed to the Caribbean leg at the moment.
Okay,
is that he's almost got a blank canvas. He can start from scratch. He can get the structure that he wants and get the people he wants, which is quite a big advantage. If you're going in as director of cricket and you haven't got people already in post, you've always got the potential there for somebody you don't like to be in post, and that puts you off a little bit. Well, Strauss can go in there and write his structure and write the people's names in that he wants to write in there if they're willing to go. So that is an advantage for Strauss in this situation.
Well, if you're going for a meta coach like Ricky Ponting, and that wouldn't it be ideal to have someone in that position? Because you offer Ricky Ponting could say, well, you don't even have a chairman of selectors, you have nobody. Why would I want to join? Wouldn't it be more important before a coach to fix your top end before you get a coach? Or is it the other way around?
I think you do it top down. Yeah. I think the first job is to say who is going to be director of cricket. Then you decide with the director of cricket whether you want to have a chairman of selectors who's going to do that selectorial role. Once you've decided that, you then appoint your coaches, white ball and red ball coach, and then you work with them to get the people they want to be in their team. Yeah, and that works down.
Yeah. Does Joe Root not have an import in that with selectors?
I think the way it works under Silverwood is that he picked the team, but very much in consultation with Joe Root as captain.
Yeah.
There's a big danger, and one of the things which, I mean, you know my thoughts on Josh Butler. He shouldn't be anywhere near the Test team, but he's the first name on the team sheet in the white ball.
Yeah.
Josh and Joe are big mates.
Yeah, I've got it. I want you to continue that, but I've got a perfect example of that. But continue.
Well, I'm not saying it necessarily makes it a harder job, but
no.
When you have a human connection with somebody, it makes it harder to drop them, and it makes it easier to think, well, he should be in my team because he adds to me as a human being. Whereas if you have a selectorial setup which is a little bit more removed from that, who is purely responsible for picking the best team and the best players for that team, you take away the human element of it a little bit, I guess, and make it a little bit more of a scientific approach. I think Ed Smith, who was the last person to have the chairman selector's job for England, maybe made it a little bit too funky and made it a bit moneyball and made it a bit scientific. And very clever bloke, Ed Smith, and probably tried to make it too clever. And there needs to be a happy medium in between the two.
Well, the perfect example I was going to mention was Michael Clark. Fantastic batsman, fantastic batsman. But off field, there was wars everywhere with players. He was a selector for away tours and to a certain degree home tours. And there was a player named Simon Kadich, who Michael Clark did not get along with at all outside of the field. And there was seasons where Simon Kadich was averaging 70 at over 1,000 runs in a Sheffield Shield season, would not get picked because of personal rivalry. Shane Watson was in the firing line. So sometimes, having captains as chairman selectors, sometimes they can pick mates over actual talent, as what Michael Clark did.
There has to be something in that, Lucas, though. If you're the captain, I think you need some kind of input, because if you're talking about selecting, I don't know, a player from the county circuit who you really don't get along with, you can't stand him. You basically, every time you see him, you fight and you argue and you punch each other. And, it's nasty, and you are actually sworn enemies.
That's literally true when it came to Michael Clark and Simon Kadich. There was a huge blow up in the change room.
I can understand, if you're Joe Root and your selector's saying to you, your arch nemesis is going to be your number 5 batsman.
Yeah,
I can understand Root saying, well, it's him or me kind of thing. You ultimately need to have a team that you're pretty happy to lead out onto the park, aren't you?
I agree with that extent, but is that an immature way to look at it?
Some people just don't get on, though, do they?
Yeah, no, of course, yeah.
And that's
can there not be a way that you can? Yeah, can there not be a way where, you know what? I don't care what you do off the field. You don't have to like me, but as long as you're on the field, do what I say. Can that not coexist in that way?
What I'm saying is that if there might be somebody that just says, right, I want you at mid wicket. He says, I know, I'm not standing there. If it gets that stupid, if it gets that stupid, then or you keep telling him that you want him to bat a certain way and he doesn't want to bat that way, and you just sort of say to the selectors, look, this guy giving me nothing I'm asking him to do. I don't want him in my side. Can you stop picking him? There has to be something there for the captain to kind of just get his team. But I think that you want it not to be. I mean, I've given you a couple of stupid examples there. There must be a better one than that. But you also don't want somebody just picking their mates all the time as well, because they're.
No, I know that. Yeah, that happens everywhere, James. That happens at domestic level. It happens in Premier League, grade cricket level. That happens everywhere. I agree with that 100%.
And so I mean, there has to be some kind of, I don't know. More than one voice there, kind of just giving, different opinions and feedback from different quarters, but then somebody making the decision. Yeah.
Do you think captains have too much input on selection themselves?
I mean, the way it works with England, generally speaking, is that the selection for the squad is done either by the chairman selectors or Chris Silverwood in more recent times.
Okay.
And then when you're abroad, it's the captain and the selector that makes the call on who's in the 11. and they got that wrong a little bit, didn't they, in Australia? But yeah, you're always going to get it wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but there's no personal beef with Joe Root and anybody else domestically, is there? There's no players that Joe Root say I don't want to take. Yeah,
I mean Rootie's one of the most easygoing guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah,
so
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I don't think he particularly falls out with people, but there just needs to be sort of checks and balances and a little bit of input and stuff like that, so that people don't get lumped with something. Then I would hate to be, if I had ever been good enough, I'd hate to be an England captain running out onto a team, looking behind me and thinking, why on earth are those two guys in my side? I just don't rate them. And that doesn't lead to anything, because we've seen in the past with England where a spinner has been picked, where the captain obviously doesn't rate him, doesn't trust him, doesn't want to bowl him. That doesn't help you on the pitch, does it? If that's the case, if the selector,
we saw that with Jack Leach.
I mean, there was other reasons for that, because I think Jack Leach was so undercut.
Yeah. It's not like Joe Root didn't like Jack Leach, but he was shark in a pond. They were after him, and we saw a stint where Root wouldn't bowl him, he'd bowl himself.
Yeah.
So I get that part completely.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the captain needs to have some kind of sway. But I think what I'd like to get away from with England, it seems to have become a group of players who are very well looked after. I've got not a problem with that. But who are player power has become a little bit too strong. You've got the cliques in that England dressing room, the Roots and Butlers and Stokes, very powerful voices in that dressing room. You've got players sort of digging their heels in and saying, I'm not doing that. I mean, as far as I'm aware, the reason England didn't go to Pakistan was very much down to Owen Morgan not wanting to go to Pakistan. There comes a time where you're not the boss. You're a player. It's an honor to play for this country. It's something that you've strived for when you were younger. It is an honor to put that shirt on. It's an honor to run out there for whatever captain you're representing, but you're representing your country. And so that is something where you're the person in charge of that, whether it's the director of cricket, whether it's the chief executive, whether it's the head coach, whoever should have a little bit more power in sort of saying, no, we're not having this. We're going to do it this way.
Well, so I want to go back to that Aaron Morgan thing. Was that series just a white ball series or a test series?
They were literally flying in for 3 or 4 days to play, I think, 3 one-day games.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say, who the hell does Aaron Morgan think he's dictating a test series? But if there was just a one-day game, I get that. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, no, Aaron Morgan obviously in charge of the white ball site setup.
Of course.
Owen Morgan's got a lot of credit in the bank because he lifted the World Cup. My personal opinion is that Owen Morgan's maybe got a little bit too powerful in that role. Because of the fact that he's earned that credit, I think he gets a lot of what he wants. And I'm not saying he shouldn't get anything he wants, but I think there needs to be some checks and balances there. And sometimes somebody needs to have the balls to turn around to Owen Morgan and say, "No, Owen, we're doing it this way instead." And I think Joe Root probably needs to have maybe a little bit more of a say, because I don't think he's always got what he wants for Test cricket.
I don't like mixing white ball with red ball, as you know, but it wouldn't be the worst thing if Joe Root went up to Aaron Morgan for advice, would it not?
I think they talk to each
on
other.
The captaincy side. Do they give feedback to each other?
I think they talk to each other. Yeah, I mean, Joe's in the 50 over team, isn't he? With Owen Morgan's captain. So I think there is dialogue there. I think they get on. I think there's no issue there. But obviously, when you've got a red ball team and a white ball team, and there's crossover in personnel, you're not necessarily, and especially in the last year where it's been so much cricket, you're not always going to get you what you want when they've done the rest and rotation. I've seen so many people slagging off rest and rotation, saying it's the wrong thing to do. If you're a multi-format player in the pandemic, it's the right thing to do. You need to have some time away from the game. Regardless of what the results are, human beings are worth more than that. And but ultimately, in the last 18 months or whatever, I don't think Joe Root's always got what he wants for that Test team. The personnel on tours have changed because, quite rightly, at times they've rested somebody. And
So sorry, who's the selection of the white ball team? Who picks the squad?
Chris Silver was in charge of everything. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
He had so
okay.
many hats to wear. He was
So
he was head coach for the White Bull. He was head coach for Red Bull,
yeah.
and he was picking the team.
So I'm scratching my head here. So how can Chris Silverwood have such a successful white ball campaign, but yet stink up the joint in red ball cricket when he's picking his own squads? Or is he trying to thinking, well, I've won a 50 over World Cup, it's going to click for me in the red ball game? How can he be so successful in one format and not the other? Okay, there we go. No idea. Well, stump James. Yeah, I've got your stump, James.
I think they've put a lot of store in the white ball side. England since 2015 have put a lot of store in the white ball side. I think England have got quite lucky in that they've got the personnel like Joss Butler coming through at the right time to make that change. And they tended to, I think Owen Morgan's probably got more of the squads that he wanted in terms of personnel than Joe Root. And they've had to balance that because obviously the World T20 came before the Ashes. So they've kind of sometimes rested players during the white ball stuff and sometimes rested them during the red ball stuff. I mean, going back to Chris Silver's record, he's not always been a bad coach. They've won series in Test cricket.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We won a World Cup. Yeah.
They've got to number 1 and 2 in the world in the white ball under Chris Silverwood's stewardship. I just think the way the ECB works, it's all about home results in Test cricket. You need to win at home. You know, you need to get packed crowds in home grounds, making England look great under English sunshine. And if you lose away from home, you can maybe stomach that a little bit.
I disagree with that heavily.
No. I'm not saying I agree. I'm not saying I agree with that. But I think that's that's the way the ECB look at it.
Yeah, that's the way Australia do as well. Their attitude is, as long as we win at home, the hell with everybody else away. I think that's a horrible attitude. It stinks. And I've been critical of that attitude in the past. When we've lost to Bangladesh, for crying out loud, and when we've got belted in Sri Lanka 3-0. The only bit of pressure Australia have had away in tour was the last Ashes series where Steve Smith was captain. He was getting press conference questions about a South African tour when the Ashes wasn't even over. And Steve Smith was like, geez, can we finish the series over? And the first bit of pressure that they felt winning away, well, we all know how that ended. So they absolutely flopped. So I anyone that says, that's a good thing, and I like that, I heavily disagree with that. I think I understand it's money. I understand you want your to perform in front of.
It comes down to filling the coffers. It comes down to filling grounds for home series.
I understand you want to perform in front of your home crowd, your sponsors. I get all that. Sponsors pay the money. Crowd pays the money. I get all that, but I think your bread and butter is at home. No question about that. But I think winning away series is in India, South Africa, or whatnot is just as crucial as your bread and butter. That's just me.
I think, Lucas, when it comes down to, if you actually listen to players talking, retired players reviewing their careers, they'll remember their centuries at Headingley in front of their home crowd, whatever else.
Of course.
It's the big series that they win away from home that actually stay with them when they've got the pipe and slippers in the pub later on. Listening to Alistair Cook talking during the Ashes, 4 overseas Ashes trips he had, one that he won. It's that one that he won that he beams from ear to ear and thinks back to how fantastic that experience was. I think, the bigger picture and winning away in difficult conditions against good teams like India and Australia away from home, they're the series that ultimately 15 years, 20 years down the line are the ones that you'll be remembered for most.
Well, this is just me. We've got a tour of Pakistan coming up, and then at home we play South Africa. I would be more than happy winning in Pakistan than against a home series in South Africa. That's just me.
Yeah.
It's easy to say that when you haven't won in ages since 2005. Yeah, they won a series in Sri Lanka in 2011. 2 of those Test matches were washed out. I don't care about that. But that's easier said when you haven't won in ages for so long. But that's how I generally feel. That this Pakistan tour coming up is just as crucial as the Ashes series for me, because
every Test series should be. Yeah, of course it should. Every Test series should be. But the way of the world, Lucas, is that Australia, India, and England are the 3 most powerful nations. When they play each other, it is worth a hell of a lot more money to the governing bodies than it is to play Bangladesh.
don't take this the wrong way because you are in the media, but I think when it comes to Australia performing away, when England perform away, I don't think the media is harsh on them as they are losing home series. I don't think that they apply pressure. Like if England, like they did, they lost to India, they got smashed. You know, when they're away, I think they get a pass, and that's what the Australian media do here. They give us the Australian team a pass when they lose outside of Australia.
I don't think England get a pass.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you, Australian media don't even care. You know, when they lost to Sri Lanka 3-0, you know, it wasn't even front page news. It was nothing. It was just a little section in the back. Australia whitewash. That's it. You know, like I said, the only time where there was uproar is when they lost to Bangladesh. And that made front news page. Trust me. South Africa made front news page. Trust me. All for the wrong reasons.
I totally agree with you, but I think certainly in England, the English team got a bit of a knocking for their performances in India, and they obviously got slaughtered for the performance in Australia.
Well, it's the Ashes, so they should be. You know, another one I've mentioned, you know, when it comes to Ashes, the Australian media do go a little bit berserk. You know, we've been belted in England tours as well previously, absolutely belted. You know, we've been bowled out for 70. You know, Test matches ended in 3 days. You know, Stuart Broad gone absolutely mental.
Yeah.
So that happens in the Ashes, but I think when it comes to playing Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, you know, India, they're so lenient. They don't care. That's just my perception. I think that's wrong. Because if you don't build pressure up, you just think, oh well, maybe we can be casual, we can just get through the tour, and that's a horrible attitude. That's what West Indies do. That's what Sri Lanka do. No disrespect to them, but that's what they do.
There's a sort of rule of thumb with cricket people that runs against India, runs against Australia almost count for more. It counts for your legacy. It counts for how you remembered. It counts for, you know, it almost counts like double. I actually think, in a way, runs against Bangladesh away and runs against Pakistan away, and they are actually probably worth more because you're finding out that the player actually gets himself up for a game when probably it doesn't feel like quite as high profile. Every Test innings should actually mean as much, shouldn't it?
100% agree with that. 100% agree with that. And you don't see that often. You know, they think, oh, it's Bangladesh. We can be semi-casual here. We only have to just perform and they'll go away. And we got absolutely embarrassed in that first test. I think England even lost a
Bangladesh away is one of the toughest tours there is.
Yeah, that's no joke. They're no joke away. You know, I think even England lost with Alistair Cook there. I think they lost a Test match there.
Right. Yeah, when it's spinning square against their spinners on the slow low tracks and stuff. Yeah, it's not an easy place to go by any means.
No. So I just think, you know, players think, oh, Bangladesh, you know, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, you know, or India. Oh, that's a big series because it's India. You know, I think that's so wrong. But anyway, we've gone off topic. We will end the show. Actually, I won't end the show. What I will do, James, would you go back to an old coach, someone that's already coached them, for the England job?
I don't think
like a Trevor Bayliss or Andy. I'm just giving you examples here. Yeah.
I don't think they'll bring an old coach back. No.
Okay.
I don't think I would. I mean, I've got a lot of time for Andy Flower, but I don't think. Peter Moore's had to, When you look at the coaches that have had 2 goes, Ashley Giles actually had 2 goes as a coach. Peter Moore's, they haven't really worked. I think
not even as an interim for the West Indies series.
No. I think they'll be okay in the West Indies. I'm not saying they're going to win, you know, with an interim coach, but I think now is the time to look forward to get somebody new in, whether that's Andy Flower. Yeah, I mean, we mentioned 3, didn't we? I think that we had ended up on our shortlist: Jason Gillespie, Andy Flower,
Ricky Ponting,
Ricky Ponting, and maybe Stephen Fleming as the 4 that would be good for Test cricket. I think with the white ball stuff, Mahela Jayawardene would be right up there. I mean, Mahela would be in there for Test cricket as well, wouldn't he? 'Cause he's a fantastic player. But somebody like that. And I think that in a way as well, it's saying earlier that you don't have to have been a great player to be a great coach. But if you walk in as a great player, you do tend to get the dressing room looking at you and listening to you, don't you? More than if you're just Fred Smith off the street. You know, if you had a Ricky Ponting walk in, or if you had a Mahela Jayawardene walk in, you're going to be listening in team meetings, aren't you?
I would think so.
Gravitas that somebody like that brings in, but equally somebody like Marcus Triscothic or Jonathan Trott brings that probably into an England dressing room too. But I think if you were to put a gun to my head and say who would you want ideally, assuming everybody was available, well, no, assuming that Ricky Ponting and probably Jason Gillespie didn't want it, I'd probably go for Andy Flower.
Gary Kirsten.
Gary Kirsten as Test captain.
Yeah.
And I'd probably go for Paul Collingwood as white ball captain.
Okay. Well, there we go, James. We'll wrap this show up.
I'm coach, not captain.
Yeah. Gee, well, if you want Paul Collingwood as a captain, I don't think that would be the worst choice. As far as tactics go. But anyway, James, thank you for joining us today. As I said, we wanted to bring you back, probably not this early, but this was big news. Happy news.
To see your gloating
absolutely
face.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Ashes probably haven't sinked in for me yet. Well, they will soon because we've got a tour of Pakistan, so that would be actually quickly forgotten.
Well, from the little video you sent me the other day, Lucas, Alex Carey's got nothing to worry about. You need, if you're keeping wicket, mate, you need to be able to catch the ball.
Oh dear. Well, poor Alex. So he's having a horrible time at the moment. Hasn't been really good domestically since he's returned. But
I've got a little video. You looked a little bit like Alex Carey, to be honest.
Yeah. So I said they said my stance is a bit like him. So can't be the worst keeper to go by if that's the case. Usually I get comments like Paul Sterling comments when I'm bowling. But yes, very good. But we'll leave that for another day. But anyway, James, thank you for joining me. I will say this again: we will get you back for the West Indies series in March, unless something big hasn't happened, like Joe Root steps down, which probably won't happen because he wants to leave. So, James, we will see you in the Caribbean. Thank you for joining us today.
Always a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you. And that's it for today, guys. Please follow James Butler, the Cricket Badger, on Twitter.
At cricket _badger. At cricket _badger.
At cricket _ badger. Okay. Yeah. All these badgers out there. And tweet to him. He'll get back to you. Actually, he won't. He doesn't get back to me. So good luck with that. Good luck.
I only respond to the good tweets.
Yeah. When you want to give criticising to my keeping, that's I consider that as a good tweet. But anyway, I'm 3 Point Spanish King. Welcome to tweet me if you want to see all my videos of dropping catches, as James has said. Fantastic. But anyway, guys, thank you. Crocodile. Yeah, I get that a lot. Crocodile. Yeah. Well, to be fair, when you're bowling at 120 Ks, you can't do lateral movement, so you have to go for it. And like I said, either sticks or it doesn't. If it would have sticked, it would have been one of the greatest catches caught on camera. But unfortunately, it didn't. So there will be another day. There will be another time that will happen. Don't trust me. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Warrior Boy said views on India versus England. Oh, okay. What are your views on the India versus England World Cup final under 19? Anyone that's impressed you there, James?
I'll tell you what. It's been a good under 19 World Cup, hasn't it? And the two best sides are in the final. Yeah, I don't think there's any debate about that. It's going to be a really good game, actually. I can't really pick it. I think India have got some terrific players. I think England have got some terrific players. I'm really impressed by the young leggy in England's side. He young Leicestershire player. He looks like a real prospect. There's a few. I think there's a few in that England under 19 side that we'll see in a few years' time, hopefully playing for the full England team. Because you look back at previous under 19 squads, there's always a few that just disappear. There's always some that come through and make it, and hopefully a lot of these young lads will do, because they've played really well. And good luck to England, because they we need something to smile about at the moment. Despite the fact that the women are doing themselves proud in the Ashes. They haven't actually won a game yet. England came back with the tails between the legs in terms of the men's side of stuff. So the under-19s is where it's at.
Well, again, no surprise, it's a white ball competition where England seem to be thriving at best. Maybe that 100 is coming along nicely, James.
I mean, it's bizarre, actually, Lucas. I saw the other day, I can't remember, was it 19 times England and India have competed in T20 and 50 over World Cups. and this
Yes.
and this is the first time,
First final. Yeah.
first final between these two nations,
Yeah.
which is amazing, isn't it?
Well, there we go. So, the future looks bright for England, well, as far as their white ball goes. So hopefully those little players in the final, good luck to them. They can convert themselves into good test prospects, James, which you really want.
Where did Australia finish? They're in the runners-up final, aren't they?
Yeah, they're in the semis or the runners-up final. They lost. So thank you for reminding me of that, James.
Not many chances to gloat this winter, so I might as well take it.
Yeah. Good. I take it. So I always take these little bandits so personally. I don't know why. It's an under-19 World Cup for Christ's sake, but
England and India than Australia. It's obvious, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. I just want any misery I can put on England, whether it's under-19, under-12s, seniors for crying out loud. I want it happens. But anyway, James, thank you for joining the show, and we'll see you in the West Indies. Thank you, guys. Bye.